I finally got the aircraft slowed down and righted up, the wings straightened out, and I leveled off at about 2,000 feet, and I still don't get anything on the radio. I set up a course of 270. I figured, well, if anything, England's big enough that I'm going to run into it sometime with this course setting 270. So I flew that course for about 15 minutes, and I called London again, and I barely heard something. And I waited 5 minutes, I called them again, and I'm still on the same course, and they came in a little stronger, and they said, we hear you, maintain course for 15 minutes and call us again. So I called them again in 15 minutes, and now they came in very good. They gave me a new steer, 220, so I was headed for Scotland probably, but I had that 270 heading, but I set up for 220 and went in, and in about 30 minutes I landed it. So I think I logged about 5 hours on that venture, and the debriefing guy said to me, well, anything unusual happened? I said, oh no, it was just routine. I did what I was supposed to. I set up the course and relayed the messages, and the reason that I did that was if I told him about all that business of losing the contact and that, I'd still be explaining about what had happened. But what had really happened was that at 25,000 I encountered the Arctic Stream. And the Arctic Stream sometimes is 65 to 100 miles an hour. And it doesn't take long to blow you off course.
Yeah.
So what happened to me probably was that it blew me into Holland probably. And there were sufficient numbers of Germans in Holland to make it quite uncomfortable. But that was my first mission. Then a week later, three of us, we were on our way to, we were over near Hanover. The weather was so bad they didn't want to send the bombers that day. So they sent us single engine fighter guys out, which didn't make a heck of a lot of sense to me, but we went out, that's orders are orders, and so we went out and we were flying along, and there was a complete 100% cloud cover. So we really didn't know where we were, but we're doing by our watch, you know, where we should be. And we figured we were over Hanover, near Hanover, and all of a sudden we ran into barrage flak like you never saw in your life. Must have been 10,000 guns down below. And it scattered us like all over the sky. And I broke like everybody else did out of sheer fright. And by the time I got myself orientated again and straightened out, this was only about my third or fourth mission, I see two specks up ahead of me, so I went up and joined with them. They could have been 109s for all I knew, but I went up and they were P-51, so I joined with them. And they were in my squadron. A very experienced pilot named Harry Ankeny, and another experienced pilot was his wingman, Rodney Starkey. So I joined up, and I went in on the left wing of Ankeny, and Ankeny, we didn't use the radio because we were near northern Germany, so we didn't want to bring too much attention to it. So we did it mostly by hand signals and that. And Ankeny motioned that we were going to go down. So he took us down. It looked like we were out on a peninsula in northern Germany, and there was an airfield down there, officially called Tarnowitz Airdrome. We didn't know it at the time. We went down, and we went out about 10 miles away and circled down, and we came back in, and we were going to strafe the airfield. And so, you know, I'd never done this before, and this first time was a charm. And I turned on my gun sight and my camera switch, and I noticed Ankeny and Starkey were pulling away. Now, I have to admit, I was cruising at about 40 inches of power. We used inches of mercury setting for our power setting. And Ankeny and Starkey were probably an emergency war boost. They were doing over 60 inches. And I didn't pick it up right away. See, they were just pulling away from me. And oh, I don't want to be by myself down here. So I added power. And then we have to pull up and nose down to shoot. And I saw the airfield up ahead of me, and I saw some activity out in front of me. And I pulled up and I was going to shoot, and I saw these 20 millimeters coming back at me. And it's kind of strange feeling the first time you see that happen to you. Now all of a sudden I'm over the airfield, and Harry, Ankeny, and Starkey are out, and they've picked out targets on the tarmac. And right in front of me is a hangar, and I see an airplane out there. And I just shot into the hangar, and I had to get out of there because I was almost running into the hangar. Because we were down at about, I would say, probably 200 feet. And as I rolled up to join Ankeny and Starkey, I happened to look down, and I was right over a gun emplacement. And only my laundryman knows how I felt, because I'm looking down, and here's the 88 millimeter anti-aircraft gun, and they're trying to get it depressed down to my level. And I see them down there as I'm going away from them, and they finally got it down, and by this time I'm almost out to the water's edge. And they started shooting that 88 at me, and what they were doing was, I got out over the water, and they were still trying to knock me down, but they weren't so concerned as hitting me as splashing me down, because the 88 shell makes a huge geyser. And they had a couple of those, and I'm saying my prayers, and I'm zigzagging away, and my thoughts were that one of those 88s is going to hit that armor plate that protects me from the back, and push me up and squash me like a bug up against the instrument panel. Well, it took, it only took a couple of seconds, but it seemed like a lifetime. And I finally got out of range, at least I got out of their visible range. I pulled up to join Ankeny and Starkey, and here comes a yellow-nosed P-51 from another group. He's looking for a mother and dad, and he finds us and joins up with us. And good old Ankeny, he was well experienced leader, and he takes us out of there, only we run into another flak trap, which was only about 5 minutes away from what we had just been through. And this one was absolutely unbelievable. We could see the shells exploding. When you can see them, you're in danger. And we could see the fragmentation and everything, and the noise, and the shock of the explosion hitting your airplane. We got out of that and got home, and Ankeny was beside himself. And in 1998, we had a reunion at Colorado Springs at the Air Force Academy. And Ankeny lived in Denver. And he didn't come to our reunion, but he came over to me. I was running the reunion with Frank Gaylor, General Gaylor, and he said to me, "Conlin, I'll never forgive myself for almost getting us killed at that airfield." I said, "Harry, that's what we were paid to do, old boy. You're just doing your job." And he was a great guy, but anyway, that was May, and then we had D Day. And we knew, you'd have to be absolutely stupid not to see all the buildup of the tremendous amount of armor and vehicles and tanks and human beings, and they were always moving around England, and England's a pretty small island when you start to move armies like that. So we knew that we were close. We took off on, it was June 4th. We went out on a mission, and we were coming back, and one of our guys, as we're coming back over the water, we made entrance on land, but we were coming back over the North Sea and the English Channel, and he looked down and he said, "Look at all those ships down there." Well, that caused a catastrophe because Eisenhower heard about it, and they were moving ships from northern Scotland and around Ireland and that, and they were moving them down to the Southampton area for the invasion, the impending invasion. We landed, and oh, did we hear about that one? And then we knew that it was very close, and on the 5th of June, we were told, "You're not going today. We're painting invasion stripes on the airplane. Nobody gets in and nobody gets out of the airfield." So we knew it was a go then. And that night on the 5th, that night about 8 o'clock, we had we all assembled in the big hall, and we had a speech from President Roosevelt, and then we had a speech from General Eisenhower, and he was telling us about that it was a definite go for the D Day. H hour was 600, O.600. And then after that, we had a meeting at 10 o'clock in the evening with the different squadrons in our group. There were 3 squadrons. And we were given our assignments, and I was assigned to fly the squadron leader's wing that day, the next day, Major Broadhead. And I thought that was kind of cool. So none of us got any sleep that night.
Sure.
Naturally, you know. And I should have gone to the restroom before we took off. But I thought, well, you know, I can wait until we get over the beachhead, because we were assigned an area of patrol off of the Jersey and Guernsey Island. I thought I'd wait until I get over there. Because I guess because we were all ready to go. I was all buttoned up, and we were down in each squadron had its own area where we had a kitchen facility and what we called a ready room, they kept our parachutes there. And so Major Broadhead and I think he was a captain, and he said, "Okay, let's go." So we went out to our airplanes, and we took off at 5 o'clock, 500 hours. And the weather was very bad.
Then?
Pardon me?
Dark then, still at 5 a.m.? Is it dark then at 5 a.m.? Is it dark?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It was dark. And Captain Broadhead and I took off on instruments, and and we climbed, and you know, he's doing the leading, all I'm doing is flying his wing. We flew down to the beachhead, which takes just about 50 minutes. And we got down there, and we got up on station off of the islands, just off of Point du Hoc. And the Captain Broadhead said to me, $1.66 is $1 a liter. Let's go down and take a look at the beachhead. I thought, oh my God. I was starting to undo my thing, you know, the North American has a relief tube that they thoughtfully build into it. Broadhead says, let's go down and take a look at the beachhead. So there went my relief. And so he and I got buttoned up real quick, and down we went on instruments. And we broke through just off of Point du Hoc, and just about 2 minutes prior, Fritz Priller, Commandant of the Luftwaffe in that area, and his executive had just swept the beach. And they started up around Point du Hoc, as near as I could tell. And they made one pass to the beach. But I'll guarantee you, if we only missed them by 2 minutes. If we'd have hit them, there'd have been a dogfight, because Broadhead didn't back down from anybody, and we didn't know it was Fritz Priller anyway. You know, he was, I think Fritz Priller was the 5th or 6th leading ace in the entire Luftwaffe at that time.
So you were over the beach at daylight?
Yeah.
And the invasion order was taking place then? So they were
They wanted it, yeah, Priller and his wingman, the adjutant, I guess figured that they wanted to see what they were up against. And I guess they did a little strafing, but it was nothing of significance. And they continued right on around at the end down but where the British and the Canadians were. They just swung around and went into their base and landed. So we never actually saw them, but we did hear it. And as I recall, it was only a couple of minutes. And we'd had a jolly good dogfight with those two guys, because they were very capable pilots. So that was an experience for D-Day. We went back up and did our job, and we were never challenged. The Luftwaffe decided to sit that one out. And so we went back to base.
What was your view of the beach at Normandy?
Well, the beach at that time was pandemonium. I never saw so many boats, ships in my life, you know, and we're going so fast we really didn't get a chance to see much. We know there's human beings down there, and there are a lot of them dying at that particular moment. But then we went right back up because we weren't supposed to be down there. Joe knew that he wasn't supposed to be there, so we didn't waste much time. We didn't advertise the fact. And he and I went back up on instrument, got back up and joined the squadron. And then we landed back at base at Leaston at about 12:30 or 1 o'clock, I think, and had some lunch. And then at about 4 o'clock we went out again. And we went over to Paris, France. Now what the point was in that, I never know, but we had encountered a bit of flak over Paris. And my particular airplane, I was hit, somebody down below put a 88 millimeter, and he was just about 100 yards too low, because I had punctures in both wings and the tail. And in fact, my crew chief gave me a piece of the timing ring of the bomb that went off that was stuck in the tail.
And were you escorting bombers then? Or
no, we weren't. We were
okay.
just on a fighter sweep.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we were just over there to make trouble, you know. That was our job. And so then we landed, and we flew the July episode that I told you about when we shot down the Focke-Wulf. That happened in July, so that was about a month and a half later. But we did a lot of ground strafing and dive bombing for about 3 weeks, because the 9th Air Force wasn't set up yet. And we were long-range escort fighters, but we were assigned to duties of the 9th Air Force, which was tactical, and they were to destroy bridges and anything moving on the ground. And our orders were, briefly, that anybody riding on anything was fair game. So if you're riding a bicycle, really, I mean, the Germans used a lot of bicycles, and so you were a target. That's the way they looked at it.
So the 9th Air Force had the twin engines.
No, the 9th Air Force.
Four.
9th Air Force had their main. Well, they did have twin engine bombers.
Right.
But that was tactical bombing. See, or in other words, the long range work was done by the 8th Air, by the heavies, and the B-29, B-17s and B-24s. We had three wings of heavy bombers, and 2 of them were B-17s and 1 was B-24s. First and third were 17, and the second wing was B-24. But then the 9th Air Force was composed of A-26s, B-26s, and A-20s, and P-47s.
And B-25s.
And B-25s. Yeah, they had a a whole bunch of those, what we would call medium and light bombardment groups. And their job was to knock out ground troops. And later on, we actually sent guys over there to work as liaison, to ride around in jeeps and coordinate the airstrike with the ground strike. So it was quite effective, you know. And when we were on that fighter sweep in July, it was what they call we call it a rhubarb. We could just go over there and shoot anything that we wanted. And that's when we ran into that heavy bunch of enemy aircraft that were trying to get at the P-38s down below. They considered the P-38s were very vulnerable for them. But this led us to, I was at about, let's see, I was at about 50 to 55 mission when I was ordered to the rest home. It sounds odd, but what it was, they figured that we were only good for so many hours before we needed to get away from it for a little while. And they would judge you by your landings and your takeoffs, and you know, they'd observe you around the officers club and whether you're drinking too much, and we all had mental things going on, you know, because in a war that happened. But I remember we viewed it as a real great opportunity, you know. So I was ordered to a rest home down near Southampton. And when I got there, this will be a pleasure for you guys. We were met by the Red Cross girls that ran the house. And when I say house, this was the most gorgeous mansion you could ever see in your life. And it was a donation by the members of royalty that owned it to the RAF and the AAF to use for that purpose. Excuse me. So the Red Cross girls met me at the railroad station, and it's about a 15-minute drive to the house and to the mansion. And it was, well, I'll tell you how big it was. We had 26 bedrooms. Wow. Now that's a pretty big place. And it was only 2 stories, but it was so gorgeous. We had, I think each one of us had our separate bedroom. And the windowsills were as wide as this table. So that's the kind of home it was. And my first visit there, the girls told me, now, these are our required regulations. You only have one obligation. You have to be at breakfast at 800 hours. Now, you don't have to eat breakfast, you don't have to stay there, but you have to be down for breakfast at 800 hours. And we have golf for you, we've got horseback riding, we got trail walking, anything you want to do. And we have civilian clothes. Now, it's against Army regulations to be in civilian clothes during the war, but they had special permission that we could wear civilian clothes. And I've got some pictures somewhere of Lieutenant Eglin and myself playing 18 holes of golf in one picture in our civvies, and in another picture we were horseback riding. And this was just a great place, you know, that at dinner time we would eat dinner there, and then we'd go out pub crawling. And there must have been 100 pubs within a 25-mile radius of that.
And you found them all, huh?
And we visited every one of them. We had a great time, you know. And I suppose psychologically it does its job, because all of us wound up doing a week there, or whatever it was, a week or 10 days or something. But here it is right in the middle of a raging war. And it always amazed me. And the Red Cross girls would, they dealt out everything. You know, they dealt out the clothes, they saw to it that the food was done, made for us and everything. And then if we wanted to stay around, they served us cocktails at night in the mansion, and you could stay there if you wanted to, or go anywhere you wanted to go, you know. It was just great. And the only other time we had seen the girls was, that is, at our base, was up at, when they ran the donut mobile. And they would come out to the airplanes as we came back from a mission and give us donuts and coffee. You know. It was great, great time. And they did have, in fact, they had several very, very nice places that were maintained by the Red Cross in London. There was a German Street Jules Red Cross Club, and it was really a wonderful place, because the hotels, it was impossible to get a hotel room unless you were a brigadier or better. But the Red Cross, Jules Red Cross Club, always had bunks available. You know, they weren't beautiful rooms or anything, but it was a place to hang out if you were in London. So that's what they did for us. And I was on leave, and I was staying at the Jules Red Cross Club. And later on, I went back to Ipswich. That was where we changed trains and took the other train up to Leiston. I was sitting in the Jules Red Cross Club there in Ipswich, having tea and crumpets or something, and one of my buddies came over to me. He had just walked in the door. He says, "Conlin, what are you doing here?" I said, "I'm just getting back from London. I just on 2-day leave in London." He says, "Well," he says, "you were scheduled to go to Russia." And I said, "Russia? Really?" He says, "Yeah," but he says, "This is Saturday and they're due to leave tomorrow, and if you don't get back there, you aren't going to go." Well, I didn't waste any time. I was out of that Red Cross Club and at the train and on my way back to Leiston. And I got there and I chased down the squadron leader, Broadhead, and the flight surgeon, Snedden. And I said to